And we're back. I am Alice Crisci, founder and CEO of MedAnswers, which runs the Fertility Answers app. I'm here with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Serena H. Chen. She is an IVF doctor from Livingston, New Jersey. And we're here today to talk about fertility answers. You know, each week we bring you little nuggets of information that we hope will lead you down the path of this concept of Monday motivation. You'll have actionable information you can take to empower yourself. But we realized we need to back up. We need to give you a little history of fertility answers and how this came to be. So first, I want to say welcome to you, my dear friend, and thank you again for being here week after week. We're so excited about this.
Always good to see you, Al.
Always good to see you. It's the highlight of my week, in fact. So I think to share the journey of fertility answers and kind of what MedAnswers is, I need to back up and share my own health path. You know, I'm coming up on 12 years of cancer survivorship, which is very hard to believe. I know, 12 years.
Oh, amazing. Awesome.
In February, I was 31 when I had breast cancer. And I to this day, when I always tell this story, Serena, I really can't pinpoint to a reason why I knew to take my first opinion oncologist and my second opinion oncologist and put them on the phone together to talk about my treatment plan. I don't know why I had the foresight to do that, but I did. And it was a pivotal moment in my cancer care because I realized those two weren't agreeing with each other and it was very confusing to me.
Right.
What I wanted to do was hear how they explained the rationale to each other, peer-to-peer calling. And then I made my decision based on, you know, that phone call. I actually ended up going with my second opinion oncologist and it changed the course of my cancer treatment completely. And I believe the course of my life. So really, I think that even though we started and launched the app, Fertility Answers app in 2017, I think the genesis for it really started with my personal experience, even though the idea didn't even happen until 2016.
Absolutely. I think so.
What we really wanted was this place where women and men, but it's mostly been women up until now, can come and connect actually directly to experts like you. So do you remember when I first even pitched you the idea?
Not really. I feel like we've always been friends, so I don't really know.
I think it was spring. It was sometime in the spring of 2016 because we were vetting the idea and we were fleshing out the first feature set. So I said, you know, we really should be able to know a digital format. You were spending so much time doing social media posts on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and then Instagram started to really explode for physicians like you. And I really wanted, you know, thought there should be this efficient place where we can connect patients to you so you don't have to go and get them all yourself. You know, my intent was let me bring the patients to you and you just be available so that we could allow patients to ask anonymous questions.
And vice versa, if a patient just goes onto Google and Instagram and Facebook, they have to do a tremendous amount of research to vet the physicians. And sometimes it's not really obvious. A lot of people call themselves doctors on the internet and they're not necessarily MDs or DOs. They don't necessarily have any training in the area that they're talking about. And meanwhile, you have all these board certified reproductive professionals on your site with like full bios and things like that. So
well, exactly. When I think about the patient experience that I had, because I did preserve my fertility, I was very lucky that I was able to do that 12 years ago. And then I had my frozen embryo transfer, you know, when I hit my 5-year mark of cancer survivorship. But I think about each of the clinics and each of the IVF doctors we have, most of them have a blog. And then we have a great set of patient bloggers too. So if you're a patient newly diagnosed to the infertility world, you're potentially looking at 2,000 places to go look up content. Potentially 2,000 places. There's just so many. Exactly. And then you're on Facebook and you're joining all these groups and you're on Twitter. And then suddenly your whole world is dominated by infertility because now all the ads on Facebook are talking about infertility. And now your Instagram feed is completely based on inspiring stories, but nonetheless, your entire world is so incredibly consumed just by fertility. My entire LinkedIn field is all fertility professionals, which I love because I'm in the field. But if I was actively going through treatment, I think I would want some separation. You know, I think that I would want to kind of keep my personal life personal, and I would want to be able to access great content in a private, anonymous manner. And these solutions out there are fantastic, we're in about 3 dozen different places all about fertility. So we can get information really quickly from peer to peer, but it's not always the correct information because it's not personalized and it's not predictive. So what we've created with this Fertility Answers app is a place for you, Serena Chen, and your professional, all your credentials and all your experience and all your research. We have created one place for you to invest the bulk of your time. Our users become anonymous. They fill out a brief health profile so that you are set up to answer their question accurately, and they can consume all this incredibly rich content.
Exactly, and I think that it's unique, right? I don't think there's any other collection, such a large collection of people who are all specialized, all in one place on your phone. And this has been evolving for a while, but MedAnswers is really revolutionary from that standpoint. And we're still growing and we're still learning and trying to change and improve to be more and more accessible for both providers and patients. So I'm really excited about that part because, I have ideas every day, right?
And you're a doctor. I tell people all the time, you could have been anything in the world. You could have been CEO of this company. You could have been medicine. Yeah, because you have so many. In fact, most of our expert feature ideas come from your beautiful, brilliant brain. They do. Most of them do.
Alice, let's do this.
But I will say some of the things that we've evolved into, we do have a clinical consensus component. And that part's really important to me because it dates back to my cancer journey where you can upvote each other's answer. This is an evolving feature. It was very prevalent in the platform in 2017 and part of 2018. The last year or so, it has kind of dropped in its product placement, if you will. We're reinvigorating this because there's really rich pieces of content that you and your colleagues have written in response to someone's question that if that patient, if any user knows that even 5 of your colleagues agreed with that answer, it makes the content so much more significant than just receiving a single answer.
And this is also very interesting because I've had a couple patients this week, and we could do a whole topic on this about how patients will say to me, well, why are you saying A and this doctor is saying B? And I'll say, we're actually saying the same thing.
Just in a different.
And when doctors talk to each other directly, it is very different experience, I think, than when a patient talks to a doctor or when a doctor talks to a patient. And using this app to pull those things together can really bring a whole nother level of understanding and education, not just for patients, but also for physicians. I think when we get to interact with patients in this way, because it's kind of anonymous, it's private, it's separate, they can vent about negative things that they might be afraid to say to the doctor in person, and we get a tremendous amount of insight from that. So this platform, I think, I've learned, I've been in this field for like 20 years, and I feel like I learn a lot from doing some questions on the app. It's very interesting.
I also love it when I see 3 and 4 answers per question. And that doesn't always happen. And in some cases, 50% of all of our questions are answered within the first 24 hours. The other 50% do take time. And there is a rush fee if somebody needs an answer guaranteed same day. And so some of our users in the past have been frustrated if they haven't gotten an answer very quickly. We're working on mechanisms to speed the rest of the delivery. But in some cases, I also really like seeing 3 or 4 answers because even if they echo what you just said, they might say it in a slightly different way, and for whatever reason, their communication style. So I think there's benefits to clinical consensus, and there's benefits to seeing a similar answer, but through kind of a different communication lens, if you will. And sometimes it's a tipping point, right, where there's 4 or 5 people that say the same thing, and then you're finally ready to hear it.
Absolutely. So. Because even though what we're doing is theoretically based upon science and medicine and data, the communication and the understanding. There's so many different ways to get that across. And even physicians, we all have very similar training, especially in the United States. And I do find that people present things in very different ways, and
Yes.
it's not one is better than another. It's just different styles. And you're right. Different patients can absorb things better maybe from one particular style than from another.
Sure. Some people want no bedside manner. Some people want all the bedside manner. And I think that this comes down to even selecting an IVF doctor you want to work with is giving our users a chance to test drive that clinician truly via the app. Just reading how they answer patient questions, reading how they answer your question. I think these are really key areas, rather than what we're fundamentally as a company against is we're fundamentally against restaurant reviews for doctors. And I get that it's become wildly popular, but we have taken a hard stand against that. We believe that, this is not the area that we want people to focus their time and attention on when it comes to selecting a provider for them.
That's so interesting, because I do think you're right. You're taking a much more proactive, positive approach. So getting to know the doctor on the platform, figuring out, do you feel comfortable, rather than giving ratings in retrospect. Exactly. And just saying, okay, you get to kind of meet some of the doctors ahead of time and before you even make a commitment to coming into the clinic or anything like that. So
that's right.
I think that's a big thing that I want to encourage all physicians to do, because I think a lot of physicians tend to be wary of online contact, but a little bit is okay. People, this is a big deal, and people need to feel a sense of comfort. Like your resume or your CV, that might not be enough. They still want to know you're a person, right?
Exactly. Well, and in this country, I think there's an expectation that there's some kind of which isn't true, but I think patients think that there's a standard of care that's supposed to be unilateral across the country. And so to a certain extent, they're like, well, I'm assuming this box is checked and that box, and it might be success rates of IVF these days or lab quality. They shouldn't take that approach. We hand select those that were participating with us. We hand select those who are participating in both our sort of free access of the app and then what we call our premium access for our network providers. But we have over 50% of the IVF field that I've engaged in some way. Might be an embryologist at a clinic, it might be the doctor. But because we only accept board certified professionals that can answer questions, we've been able to have a very closely tied peer-to-peer network. Our first 50 providers were referrals from you, Serena, and from Santi, my co-founder, Dr. Monet. And because of that, we sort of look to each provider to, then refer kind of the next, wave of doctors. Whether somebody has answered only 4 questions on our app or, 1,000 questions on our app, we're so grateful for each, even a single question that's been answered. And I'm always so touched by the, the detail that a lot of our providers go into. I'm always touched by the empathy that you show in each and every question, even if you're answering really quickly or you're on the run, literally getting to another patient. I'm always so touched by the care that you give with your answers. And, that is something that I feel like patients always connect with. And in some cases, I read answers. In fact, one of our Canadian doctors, Dr. Hannum, he had such an incredibly rich response to something, and I thought, gosh, this is like a blog post in and of itself, as just how he answered one question. So we have a very rich content base that is expert driven, expert communicated, based on real patient questions. 100% of it is authentic. Now, in the case where patients are using our search tool to search for content, some of our number one search terms, of course, are PCOS, which is not surprising. Another area is miscarriage, again, not surprising. We have a pretty young user base. I mean, the majority of our users are in their 20s actively trying to conceive, which is, always a misnomer that nobody wants to conceive until their 30s, which we know is not true. But I'm always surprised, though, that the word old, that word keeps popping up in search. And we have such a young user base. And so I'm not sure if it's old eggs, old sperm, maybe they all have older spouses. I'm not sure. It's just old. So that's kind of an interesting search term.
Yeah, we have to like sort that out more, like dive a little deeper in that, because you're right. Like what exactly does that mean? What about endometriosis?
So endometriosis, actually, I think it was our fourth last month. We do about 4% of our users have endometriosis. So, endometriosis and pain, and also a lot of users with endometriosis asking about, is even natural conception possible, or what we call unassisted conception possible? They're coming to us saying, really, how much of an effort is this going to be to have my family? And so it's nice to just be able to, help people kind of vet their decision-making process. Like, how important is it that I get into a clinic? And of course, it depends on severity and a lot of factors. But that definitely comes up a lot. The next kind of level of what MedAnswers has recently rolled out, though, is this matching platform. So what we realize is that because not every user asks a question, because we have really helpful data on them, we can actually go a step further and hand select product solutions and even doctors for them. We really just want to take all the research headache away from the patient and save them time, reduce their overwhelm. So in the case of something as important as getting your timing right, if you're still trying unassisted conception, is making sure you have the right ovulation kit for you. And with our patients with PCOS, we have added a partner called OvuSense that allows us to match everyone who has PCOS with a clinically validated tool specifically for their condition. So our scientific team has come up with a vetting process for how we approve or don't approve tools out there, and that includes clinical trials. So we can match somebody to a product, to a service, to a doctor, to a clinical trial, with the intent that we just help people get to the answer faster.
Okay, very cool. Very cool.
So why did you go to the platform in the first place, Serena? What was it about this that had you?
I feel like this is something in some ways that I've been wishing for since the 1990s. Okay. So way back when I first started, I trained classically at Johns Hopkins Hospital. It's very kind of a very male-dominated system. I went to Duke Medical School, Johns Hopkins. Like, it was very male-dominated environment, and very hierarchical. Like, the first year could only talk to the second year, the second year could only talk to the third year, very rigid. And it was very rigid when it comes to the patient. The patient has a role, the doctor has a role. We stand across from each other. We never sit side by side, and the doctor gives the orders, and then the patient, does everything the doctor says. And as I got out into independent practice, it just didn't totally feel right to me. And I think that a lot of patients were seeking more answers and seeking a more collaborative approach and asking a lot of questions. And I was always taught, like, that, those patients are not behaving appropriably, but it didn't seem right to me. And I got involved with places like Resolve and I got involved with the AFA and American Fertility Association and Resolve, and they had these chat rooms and boards in the 1990s, which were very primitive forms of kind of social media back then. And I used to answer questions on those boards, and I used to get some patients from those boards where people are just doing what they do on MedAnswers, but in a very primitive form. Like, just you post it on there, and then the doctor posts the answer. Yeah. And but I learned a lot from that about, like, the what patients were thinking when they were not in the office, and about how much people were suffering from lack of information, lack of education, lack of comfort. And so, when Facebook came around and Twitter came around, and then finally Instagram, it was just, I got on there and found, like, a lot of connection and more information, and just, like, finding it like a great tool to be able to educate and to try to raise awareness and improve comfort levels for patients, because with so much data that most people who needed help were not actually coming to see the doctor. Why? Because it was intimidating. There are all these barriers, a lot, and I felt like, well, if we can break down barriers with education and make people more comfortable, then we could really make a difference for them.
Yes.
And so when you said, this is what I want to do, I was like, oh my God, this is what people need. This has huge potential to really reach people where they are, like at home, suffering and like nervous to even pick up the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So like connecting really vetted providers with people who have so many questions, and not to give medical advice, not to treat people through their phones, but just to break down these barriers of just so much misinformation out there. And I've already seen it, even though, MedAnswers hasn't been around that long. And I feel like there's so much technology out there. We're just going to hopefully just keep growing and growing and growing, that you'll find you've already raised a lot of money so far. Hopefully more investors will realize the huge potential of this. Because if we can do this for fertility, maybe we could change all of healthcare. That's the idea.
Exactly. I'm absolutely, and I love your passion and commitment for the cause so much, and you've been such a pioneer in answering so many questions on the app as well. What do you want to see next with the growth of the platform and where we're headed?
We need more and more metrics on both sides and easily searchable. And I want to make it a little bit more personal while still protecting privacy. So those are big things, and like to make it super easy, because doctors have all this. I mean, we spend so many years filling our heads with information, and to have the only way to be able to get that information to patients to have them come into the office and do the insurance and sit down with them. It would be there's so many wonderful physicians out there, and the easier we make this for them, and doctors also have a little bit of fear of tech as well, but the easier we make this for them, the more patients we could reach. So a lot of my vision is about really just using the technology to be able to make these answering patients' questions and getting the information out there more and more accessible, and to try to make it personal and fun.
I know that you asked a while ago that is still on the product roadmap. You want to be able to answer questions in video. Is that still something that would be helpful?
That would be so much fun. So much fun. I would love that. Yeah. Okay. And I'm thinking about this Canadian doctor that you just talked about. Like, he did like this beautiful answer, and just like, can we make it really easy to throw it up in a blog post, but still maintain privacy, obviously. And like I did, there was one answer I did like last month where I felt like this woman asked such a great question. It inspired me to write a longer post, and I, paraphrased it and stuck it on my website also. But, if we do these video things, you would want to be able to not only answer that person's question, but each patient teaches us something. So can that, that inspires an answer, and that content, like, let's get it out there. Let's get it out there and share it with people so other people can benefit too.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of what's underway right now, to let everybody know is that, we don't want to be protective of this content. We want to share it with the world very freely. We're all about free access. And there's lots of tools that are coming out this year, and it's 2020. And some of these things are really designed around increasing your access to specialty healthcare. We started with fertility. We're not ending there. We want to be able to follow your life journey with you. But today, if you have a question about fertility, infertility, or anything that might be standing in the way of your dream of realizing a family, please hop onto the platform. It's available on iOS and Android. Ask your questions of this incredible network of experts that we have working with us. They volunteer their time to be available to you, whether or not you end up being a patient. They do this because they are committed to stopping the spread of misinformation and getting the right information into your hands at the right time. So I just want to say thank you, Serena, for being one of the first. Thank you for the constant support. This is your Monday. Please give us feedback about what else you need to see in the platform. We have an incredibly passionate, committed team that has sacrificed so much to just bring this incredible change and this incredible app to the field of fertility. So we thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.